respected. If life has knocked you down so many times that you no longer recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror, then listen carefully. The difference between those who succeed and those who surrender is often just one decision, one promise, one sentence spoken in the darkest hour: I will not quit. There comes a moment in every person's life when the excitement disappears, the motivation fades, the applause becomes silence, and the dream that once kept you awake at night suddenly feels too heavy to carry. Most people believe success is built during the good days. They think champions are made when everything is working perfectly. But life teaches a different lesson. The truth is that success is often born in pain. It is shaped in disappointment. It is forged in the moments when every reason to quit is standing right in front of you. I want you to imagine a young man sitting alone in a small room. His bills are overdue. His phone barely rings. The people who once encouraged him have started questioning his choices. Every morning he wakes up with the same dream in his heart, but every evening he goes to sleep wondering if that dream will ever come true. Day after day, nothing changes. Week after week, nothing improves. And then one night, he sits on the edge of his bed and asks himself a question that millions of people ask every year. What if this isn't meant for me? That question is dangerous, not because it comes from weakness, but because it arrives when you're exhausted. It arrives when you've already given everything you have. It arrives when your faith is tired. The young man stared at the ceiling and thought about quitting. He thought about choosing the safe path. He thought about becoming like everyone else around him. After all, nobody would blame him. Nobody would criticize him. Nobody would call him a failure for giving up. But then something happened. A quiet voice inside him spoke, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for him to hear. It said, "You didn't come this far just to stop here." And sometimes that's all you need. Not a miracle, not $1 million, not a standing ovation, just one reason to keep moving. You see, life has a strange way of testing people. Before it gives you what you prayed for, it often asks you a question. How badly do you want it? Not with words, with obstacles, with delays, with setbacks, with doors that refuse to open. Because everybody wants success when success is easy. Everybody wants greatness when greatness is comfortable. But very few people are willing to keep going when there was no evidence that their effort is paying off. That is where character is built. That is where ordinary people become extraordinary. I remember hearing stories about individuals who spent years chasing a dream nobody else could see. People laughed at them. People doubted them. People predicted their failure. Yet they kept moving. Not because they were fearless, not because they never felt discouraged, but because they made a decision stronger than circumstances, a decision stronger than criticism, a decision stronger than temporary defeat. They decided they would not quit, and that decision changed everything. The world often celebrates the victory, but ignores the struggle. We see the successful business. We don't see the years of rejection. We see the confident speaker. We don't see the nights of insecurity. We see the winner holding the trophy. We don't see the thousands of times they wanted to walk away. Every success story contains chapters nobody talks about, chapters filled with loneliness, chapters filled with tears, chapters filled with uncertainty. But those chapters matter because they reveal the truth. The truth is that winners are not people who never fall. Winners are people who refuse to stay down. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you been disappointed? How many times have you trusted someone and been hurt? How many times have you worked hard and received nothing in return? How many nights have you wondered whether your best days were already behind you? Those experiences can break a person, or they can build a person. The difference lies in what you choose to believe. If you believe the struggle is the end of your story, you will stop. If you believe the struggle is preparing you for something greater, you will continue. And continuing is powerful. Because every day you refuse to quit, you become stronger than the version of yourself that existed yesterday. Every challenge teaches you something. Every setback develops resilience. Every obstacle sharpens your determination. The pain that feels unbearable today may become the source of your strength tomorrow. The young man sitting alone in that room didn't know what the future held. He couldn't see the opportunities ahead. He couldn't predict the breakthroughs coming his way. All he knew was this: if he quit tonight, the dream would die forever. If he continued, there was still a chance. And sometimes hope is simply believing that one more step might change everything. So he got up the next morning. Nothing had changed. The bills were still there. The problems were still there. The uncertainty was still there. But he was different because he had made a choice that would guide him through every hardship ahead, a choice that would carry him through every disappointment, a choice that would become his personal declaration: I will not quit. And that declaration became stronger than every obstacle standing in his way. The days that followed were not easier. That is the part many people never tell you. When you make the decision not to quit, life doesn't suddenly remove every obstacle from your path. The storms don't instantly disappear. The challenges don't magically solve themselves. In fact, sometimes the moment you decide to keep going is the exact moment the pressure becomes even heavier. The young man learned that quickly. He kept working, he kept believing, he kept showing up, but there were still moments when doubt knocked on the door of his mind. There were mornings when getting out of bed felt like a battle. There were evenings when exhaustion whispered, maybe this isn't worth it. And if we're honest, every one of us has heard that whisper. The whisper that tells you to settle. The whisper that tells you to lower your standards. The whisper that tells you your dreams are too big and your chances are too small. The world is full of people who stopped because they listened to that voice. But there is another voice, a stronger voice, a voice that reminds you why you started, a voice that remembers the promises you made to yourself, a voice that sees possibilities where others see limitations. The challenge is learning which voice deserves your attention. One afternoon, the young man walked through a neighborhood where he had spent most of his childhood. The houses looked smaller than he remembered. The streets felt quieter. As he walked, memories came flooding back. He remembered the dreams he had when he was young. Back then, he believed anything was possible. Back then, he wasn't afraid to imagine a bigger future. Back then, failure wasn't something that terrified him. Somewhere along the journey, life had tried to convince him to think smaller. Life had tried to teach him caution instead of courage. It had tried to replace belief with fear. And standing there on those familiar streets, he realized something important. The greatest battle in life is rarely against the world. The greatest battle is against the limitations we accept in our own minds. Many people are not defeated by circumstances. They are defeated by conclusions. They conclude they're not talented enough. They conclude they're too old. They conclude they're too late. They conclude they've already missed their opportunity. And once a person accepts those conclusions, they stop fighting. But what if those conclusions are wrong? What if the opportunity you've been waiting for is closer than you think? What if the breakthrough is hiding behind one more difficult season? What if your greatest chapter hasn't even begun? History is filled with people who succeeded after everyone expected them to fail. People who endured rejection after rejection. People who faced closed doors again and again. People who heard no so many times they could have built a wall with it. Yet they kept moving. Not because success was guaranteed, because quitting was unacceptable. That mindset changes everything. When quitting is no longer an option, your focus shifts. Instead of asking, can I do this? You start asking, how will I do this? Instead of looking for reasons to stop, you begin searching for ways forward. And that is when growth begins. The young man started approaching life differently. Every setback became a lesson. Every mistake became a teacher. Every failure became feedback. He stopped seeing obstacles as proof that he should quit. He started seeing them as preparation. Preparation for responsibilities he had not yet received. Preparation for opportunities he had not yet encountered. Preparation for a future he could not yet see. That perspective gave him strength because pain with purpose feels different. Struggle with meaning feels different. When you know there is a reason behind your journey, you can endure far more than you ever imagined. Think about a seed buried beneath the soil. If that seed could speak, it might believe it had been forgotten. It might think darkness is permanent. It might wonder why it feels pressure from every direction. But the pressure isn't destroying the seed, the pressure is transforming it. And many people watching this right now are in that season. You feel buried, you feel overlooked, you feel like nothing is happening. Yet beneath the surface, growth is taking place, roots are developing, strength is forming, character is being built. The process may be invisible, but it is not meaningless. One of the greatest mistakes people make is comparing their journey to someone else's. The young man struggled with that too. He looked around and saw people moving ahead faster. He saw others reaching milestones he hadn't reached. He saw success stories everywhere he turned. And for a moment, he felt behind. Then he realized something powerful. Comparison steals gratitude. Comparison steals confidence. Comparison steals momentum. Your journey was never meant to look exactly like anyone else's. You have different experiences, different lessons, different timing, different challenges. The race you're running is your own. And the moment you stop comparing, you free yourself to focus on becoming better than you were yesterday. Not better than someone else, better than the person you used to be. That is a battle worth fighting. That is progress worth celebrating. Months passed. The young man still faced uncertainty, but something inside him was changing. He was becoming stronger, not because life had become easier, because he had become tougher. His confidence no longer depended on immediate results. His belief no longer depended on outside approval. His determination no longer depended on perfect circumstances. He had discovered something many people spend their entire lives searching for. He had discovered that real strength comes from commitment, a commitment so deep that temporary failures cannot shake it, a commitment so powerful that criticism cannot weaken it, a commitment so strong that setbacks cannot destroy it. And every morning when he looked in the mirror, he repeated the same promise, not because it sounded good, because he needed to hear it, because it reminded him who he was becoming, because it reminded him that persistence is often the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to be. The promise remained simple. The promise remained clear. The promise remained unshakable. I will not quit. Years have a way of revealing what days cannot. When you're living through a difficult season, it feels endless. Every challenge seems permanent. Every setback feels personal. Every delay feels unfair. But time has a remarkable ability to uncover lessons hidden inside pain. The young man was beginning to understand that the things that once frustrated him were now teaching him patience. The obstacles that once discouraged him were now building endurance. The disappointments that once broke his heart were now shaping his character, and character is a powerful thing. Talent may open a door. Luck may create an opportunity. But character is what keeps you standing when everything else falls apart. One evening, after another long day, the young man sat alone and reflected on his journey. He thought about all the moments he nearly walked away, the opportunities he almost abandoned, the dreams he almost buried, the goals he almost convinced himself were impossible. And suddenly he realized something. Most people never fail because they lack ability. Most people fail because they stop too soon. They quit during the chapter where everything is still being prepared. They leave before the harvest arrives. They abandon the process before the transformation is complete. Imagine a miner digging for gold. For months he works tirelessly. Day after day, he strikes the rock. Nothing. Week after week, he continues. Still nothing. Eventually, he becomes discouraged, exhausted, frustrated, convinced there is no treasure beneath the surface. So he puts down the tools and walks away. But what he never discovers is that he stopped only a few inches from the goal. How many people live that story? How many people quit inches away from their breakthrough? How many people surrender moments before the opportunity appears? How many dreams die simply because someone became tired of waiting? The truth is you rarely know how close you are. Success does not send a message announcing its arrival. Breakthroughs do not appear with warning signs. Sometimes the biggest change happens after the longest struggle. Sometimes the greatest victory follows the hardest season. Sometimes the answer arrives after the final test of patience. That is why persistence matters. Not because it guarantees immediate results, because it keeps you in the game long enough to receive what your effort has earned. The young man began noticing something else. The people who inspired him most were not necessarily the most talented. They were often the most persistent. They kept showing up. They kept learning. They kept adapting. They kept moving forward when others stood still. Life rewards that kind of consistency. Not overnight, not instantly, but eventually, a river can carve through solid rock, not because it is stronger than the rock, because it refuses to stop flowing. That lesson stayed with him. Every challenge became another opportunity to prove his commitment. Every difficult day became another chance to strengthen his resolve. Every disappointment became another reminder that growth often happens where comfort ends. And slowly, almost without realizing it, he was changing into someone he once admired from a distance. Someone disciplined, someone resilient, someone dependable, someone capable of carrying greater responsibility. The person he wanted to become wasn't appearing because life suddenly became easy. That person was emerging because hardship was teaching lessons comfort never could. There is something powerful about surviving what you once thought would break you. Think about that. Every difficult moment you've already overcome, every storm you've already survived, every setback you thought would be the end. Yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still moving forward. There is strength inside you that you haven't fully discovered yet. There is courage inside you that hasn't been fully tested yet. There is potential inside you that hasn't been fully revealed yet. The problem is that many people measure themselves by their current circumstances. They look at where they are and decide who they are. But those are two completely different things. Your circumstances are temporary. Your potential is permanent. Your current situation is a chapter. It is not the entire story. The young man finally understood this. He stopped defining himself by what he lacked. He stopped measuring his worth by his setbacks. He stopped allowing temporary struggles to create permanent beliefs. Instead, he focused on becoming stronger, becoming wiser, becoming more disciplined, becoming more faithful, because every day spent improving yourself is an investment in a future version of you. And one day that future version arrives. One day you become the person you spent years building, not through luck, not through shortcuts, through consistency, through perseverance, through refusing to quit. Then something remarkable happened. The young man started seeing small victories, nothing dramatic, nothing world-changing, just signs. Signs that progress was happening, a new opportunity, a meaningful connection, an unexpected breakthrough, a door opening where there had once been a wall. And those small victories reminded him of an important truth. Success often arrives quietly before it arrives loudly. The world notices the big moment, but the big moment is usually built upon hundreds of invisible moments nobody ever sees. The extra effort, the early mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, the discipline, the faith, the decision to continue when stopping would have been easier. That is where greatness begins, not in the spotlight, in the shadows, not in comfort, in commitment, not in certainty, in belief. As he looked back on everything he had endured, the young man realized that the greatest reward was not the success he was chasing. The greatest reward was who he had become along the way, because success can change your circumstances, but perseverance changes your identity. And once that transformation happens, nothing can take it away. The world may challenge you, life may test you, people may doubt you. You bit it. Deep inside, you know something they do not know. You know how much you've survived. You know how many times you've risen after falling. You know how many battles you've fought in silence. And that knowledge creates a confidence that cannot be purchased, a confidence built one difficult day at a time. A confidence built one courageous decision at a time. a confidence built from a promise repeated over and over until it becomes part of who you are, a promise that echoes through every challenge, a promise that grows stronger with every setback, a promise that refuses to surrender. I will not quit. As we come to the end of this journey together, I want you to remember one thing. Life is not asking whether you will face difficulties. You will. Life is not asking whether you will experience disappointment. You will. Life is not asking whether people will doubt you. Some will. The real question is what you will do when those moments arrive. Will you allow temporary pain to convince you that your story is over? Or will you stand up one more time? Because greatness is not reserved for a special group of people. Greatness belongs to those who keep going, those who continue when continuing is difficult, those who believe when belief is uncomfortable, those who move forward when fear tells them to stay where they are. The young man from this story eventually achieved many of the things he once dreamed about, but the